Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into the weeds of human behavior. We're looking past the nice surface reasons we give for things, the cooperative stuff, and digging into these huge, often kind of selfish motives hiding underneath the elephant in the brain, as it's called.
That's exactly it. This whole deep dive comes from this pretty challenging idea that our minds are really social tools, political tools even, designed for, strategic self-deception. We hide our real drivers from ourselves.
Why? Why do that?
Well, the thinking is the better to deceive others. If you believe your own story, you're more convincing. And these aren't small things. They're elephant size, like the sources say.
Yeah.
Big enough to show up in like national economic data, health, spending, politics.
Right. So our mission today is kind of cutting through those comfortable stories, the win-win explanations we like, and finding these more competitive, maybe even zero-sum instincts that are often, well, really running the show. And we have to start at the source, right, with the brain itself, this claim that it's actually built for this duplicity.
That's the absolute foundation. Yeah. Let's unpack how that might work. The core argument is that we evolved this ability, this self-deception, because it makes it way harder for people to bust us when we're, bending the rules or acting selfishly.
If I don't even know my real motive, how can you prove it?
Precisely. It's like a built-in defense against getting caught and facing social penalties.
So it's like our mind is compartmentalized. The conscious bit is sort of kept out of the loop by the unconscious part that's actually pulling the strings.
Pretty much. Researchers talk about this thing called the interpreter module. It's mainly in the left side of the brain. Think of it as like an internal press secretary.
A press secretary. Okay.
Yeah. Its job isn't to make the decisions. Its job is to cook up reasonable-sounding explanations for our actions after they've already happened, post hoc.
After the fact.
Right. It's a rationalization machine, not the CEO.
Okay, that's a bit unsettling. My conscious thoughts are just spin for decisions already made somewhere else. How confident are we about this? How do we know this press secretary is just, making stuff up?
Well, this is where the split brain experiments come in. Really fascinating stuff built up over decades.
Okay, split brain. That's when the connection between the two halves is cut, right?
Exactly, the corpus callosum. And when that's severed, researchers can basically talk to one hemisphere without the other one knowing. They can kind of trick the press secretary.
Trick it how? Give me the setup.
Okay, so imagine they flash an instruction, like walk, just to the right hemisphere of the patient's brain, maybe using the left eye. So the right hemisphere gets the command, processes it, and the patient starts to get up and walk towards the door.
Okay, makes sense. But the left hemisphere, the one with the press secretary, the one that controls speech.
It saw nothing. It got no instruction. It's completely in the dark about why the body is suddenly moving.
So the researcher asks, hey, where are you going?
Right. And the left brain can't just say, beats me, ask the other guy. It needs a reason. It has to have a coherent story.
Yeah.
Instantly.
And what does it say? What kind of reasons does it invent?
Things like, I just wanted to go get a Coke, or I felt like stretching my legs. Plausible reasons. Socially acceptable.
But completely fabricated on the spot.
Totally counterfeit. Yeah. It's really powerful evidence that what we experience as conscious reasoning is often it's like a rehearsal. It's the story we're preparing to tell everyone else.
Wow.
These ready-made justifications help us sneak past the gatekeepers of social norms. We look harmless, cooperative, even when the underlying drive might be something else entirely.
That really forces you to be humble about your own motivations, doesn't it? Realizing they might just be stories. Okay, so if this mechanism, this press secretary, is always running, what does that look like out in the world, in big areas? Let's talk medicine. We usually think of medicine as purely about health.
Right.
Totally cooperative, altruistic thing, helping people get better.
That's the nice story, the one we tell ourselves. And it justifies, enormous spending. But when you actually dig into the data, it gets complicated. It suggests medicine is about a lot more than just, like, measurable health outcomes.
How so? What does the data show?
Well, look at developed countries. We see this huge overconsumption of medical care.
Overconsumption, you mean like too many tests, too many pills?
Yeah, and we have good evidence for it. There are these big randomized studies like the RAND health insurance experiment. They found that when people were given completely free health care, zero cost, they used about 45% more of everything. Doctor visits, tests, drugs, you name it.
Okay, 45% more. That's a huge jump. So they must have gotten a lot healthier, right?
That's the kicker. Despite that massive increase in consumption, the studies show they don't end up noticeably healthier.
Wait, hold on. 45% more medical care, more spending, more everything. and zero significant difference in health outcomes.
Broadly speaking, yes, for the average person.
That just completely undermines the idea that it's all purely about health utility. If getting healthy isn't the main driver for all that extra care, what is?
And we see this sort of indifference to pure utility elsewhere, too. There was this one study, it's pretty shocking, actually. Patients were about to have dangerous heart surgery, major stuff.
Okay.
They were offered the chance to find out the different death rates for that specific surgery at nearby hospitals. Statistically significant differences in survival.
Absolutely crucial information, you'd think.
You would think, but only 8% of the patients were willing to pay just $50 for that data.
$50. Only 8%. For potentially life-saving information. I mean, I'd pay way more than that. That seems crazy.
It's radical indifference, isn't it? If staying alive, the core health outcome, was the only thing that mattered, wouldn't almost everyone want that info?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the analysis, the interpretation in the sources we're drawing on is that medicine often functions as what they term conspicuous caring.
Conspicuous caring. Like conspicuous consumption, but with care.
Exactly like that. We tend to prefer medical treatments that involve visible effort, visible expense, visible commitment, both for ourselves and maybe even more importantly for those we care about, like our children or elderly parents.
Why visible?
Because the visibility is the signal. We get satisfaction from the appearance of good care. It sends a powerful message to our social network.
What message?
Something like, look how much I'm doing. Look how much I care. See how I sacrifice for my loved ones when they're vulnerable. I'm a dependable, valuable ally. You can count on me to do the same for you if you ever need it.
So,
Bringing that expensive fruit basket to a friend in the hospital, it's not just kindness, it's also a performance, a signal of my loyalty as a friend.
the performance and the kindness are often tangled up.
Yeah.
The hidden motive, the signaling, it often rides piggyback on the genuinely good act. Wanting to appear caring pushes us towards costly, visible displays of care, maybe even sometimes over less visible but potentially more effective things like focusing on prevention or digging into objective data. I see. Okay. So we perform caring. Do we also perform, well, other things? Like wealth or status? Let's shift to consumption. We kind of know about conspicuous consumption, right? Veblen's idea, flaunting wealth with fancy cars, big houses.
Oh, absolutely. That's classic signaling. But the insight here goes deeper. It's not just about signaling how much money you have. We also signal our moral qualities, our group identities, our pro-social tendencies. And sometimes that kind of signaling is even more important than just showing off cash.
Moral signaling through buying stuff. How does that work? Give me an example.
Okay, think about the rise of green products. There was this study where people had a choice. Option A, a really luxurious, comfortable, high-status car, but not environmentally friendly. Option B, a less luxurious, maybe less comfortable car, but clearly marked as green.
And people chose the green one,
Yeah.
even if it was less.
Nice. Frequently, yes. Now, was that purely because they suddenly became hardcore environmentalists overnight? Maybe partly. But the analysis suggests a big part of it was the signal. Choosing the green car sends a message. I'm the kind of person who cares about the planet, I'm conscientious, maybe even willing to sacrifice personal comfort for the greater good. That's a powerful status signal in many circles today. It signals virtue.
Right. So it's not just wealth status, it's moral status.
Yeah.
And we compete on that too.
Fiercely. It becomes this kind of competitive arms race,
Uh-huh.
but with virtues, or the appearance of virtues, as the weapons.
An arms race, wasteful.
It can be, yeah. The analogy used is redwood trees. Why do they grow so incredibly tall? Functionally, they probably don't need to be quite that tall just to live.
They're competing for sunlight, right, against each other.
Exactly. Each tree is trying to get taller than its neighbors to grab that limited resource. It's a race to the top, and it requires enormous resources, far more than if they all just stayed shorter. It's enormously wasteful from a purely functional standpoint.
But evolution favors the tree that wins the height competition.
Right. And human status competition is often like that. We pour resources into things, education, clothing, hobbies, donations, partly for their function, but also largely because they signal our quality, our status, our group affiliation. And that signaling competition can be just as resource intensive and functionally wasteful as the redwoods growing tall.
It really highlights how much of what we buy and do is aimed at an audience. What other people think. What if? What if that audience just disappeared?
That leads to a great thought experiment from the source material. They call it obliviation.
Obliviation. Okay, what happened?
Imagine some aliens snap their fingers and overnight, everyone becomes completely oblivious to everyone else's possessions. You can still enjoy your own stuff. Your house, your car, your clothes feel the same to you.
But I just can't see or care about what anyone else has. No comparing, no judging.
Exactly. The social signaling aspect of consumption is just
Fine.
switched off. What's the predicted result?
Well, if nobody can see my fancy watch or my designer clothes, why bother?
Precisely. The prediction is that product variety, especially in things like clothing and fashion, would plummet. It would just dry up.
We'd all just wear
Like,
comfortable basics, the most functional stuff.
pretty much.
Right.
People would shift almost entirely to buying the cheapest, most comfortable, most durable, most functional versions of things. That whole massive industry built on style, trends, brand status, differentiation.
Gone. Because the signaling value is zero.
Vanished. It's a stark way to illustrate just how much of our economic life, our daily choices, is really about performance, about competing for status in the eyes of others.
And speaking of performance and competition,
Mm.
politics, that feels like the ultimate stage for this stuff. It's always presented as, civic duty, doing good, voting for the best policies, the common good, altruism.
That's the beautiful story again, isn't it? The do-right narrative of political engagement. But if you applied just basic rational choice theory, like economists do, that story starts to wobble a lot.
Why? What's the problem with the civic duty story?
Well, think about voting in a big election, like a presidential election.
Well,
It takes effort, right? You have to register, maybe figure out the issues, take time off work, stand in line.
there are costs.
But what's the chance that your one vote will actually change the outcome? That it will be the single deciding vote?
Probably. Incredibly small.
Infinitesimally small. For the 2008 U.S. presidential election, one estimate put the odds at 1 in 60 million.
1 in 60 million.
Right.
Okay. So my vote almost certainly makes no difference to who wins or what policies get enacted.
From a purely instrumental perspective, pretty much zero impact.
So if it's not rational self-interest, because my vote won't change the outcome to benefit me, and it's not really about effectively changing policy for the better, why on earth do so many people bother? Why get so passionate?
This is where the hidden motive comes roaring back. The argument is, it's primarily about signaling loyalty. Loyalty to your group, your coalition, your tribe. Political action, voting, arguing, posting online, donating is often less about actually trying to achieve specific policy outcomes and much more about performing your allegiance. It's the motive of the apparatchik.
Apparatchik. Can you unpack that term a bit? What does that mean here?
Think of it not as the citizen purely focused on the best outcome for everyone, but more like the party loyalist, the functionary. Someone whose main goal is to demonstrate commitment to their side, show they belong, gain favor within their group, and help their coalition win, regardless of the objective merit sometimes.
So it's about showing you're a good team player for your political team.
Exactly. It helps you build social capital, gain alliances, feel part of something. It's about belonging and status within the group.
And this drive to signal loyalty, it can push people towards some pretty extreme, maybe even irrational seeming behavior, just to prove they're loyal.
Absolutely. In fact, sometimes the more irrational or costly the display, the stronger the signal of loyalty. There's this really chilling historical example. A Soviet conference back in 1937. Stalin gives a speech, finishes, and leaves the room.
Okay.
And the whole assembly just erupts in applause, standard stuff. But then the applause keeps going and going.
For how long?
For 11 minutes, 11 solid minutes of clapping after Stalin had already left.
11 minutes. Why didn't they just stop?
Because who would dare to be the first one to stop clapping? Stopping first could be interpreted as insufficient loyalty, insufficient enthusiasm, a potentially fatal mistake in that environment.
Wow. They were trapped in a loyalty performance.
Completely trapped. The story goes that the director of a paper factory finally took a risk and sat down, and others quickly followed his lead. He was arrested later that same night.
That's stark. It shows how loyalty demands these public sacrifices, these acts that look totally irrational from the outside.
It's the costliness that makes the signal credible. And that, the sources argue, is why our political beliefs often function the same way. They're like badges of loyalty.
Holding the right opinions shows you belong to the tribe.
Precisely. And notice how little pressure we often feel to be, factually accurate or deeply informed about the policies we support or oppose so vehemently.
Yeah, people get really dug in, even when presented with counter evidence.
Because often the truth of the belief isn't really the point. The point is its social function. Does this belief align me with my group? Does it signal that I'm one of the good guys on our side?
So the expressive value trumps the factual accuracy.
Very often, yes. We just need to adopt the current orthodoxy of our coalition, whatever that might be, to gain that social credit, reinforce those alliances. It's about signaling affiliation more than pursuing truth.
Okay, so this whole deep dive, it paints a picture where from our basic brain wiring or reasoning
Hmm.
all the way out to huge things like healthcare spending, what we buy, how we do politics. So much of it is driven by this undercurrent of social competition, of signaling, of wanting to look good, often masking these more selfish or competitive drives. The pressure to just, advertise our good qualities is immense.
It is. It's a pretty sobering picture, but also a really important one to grasp, I think. It reframes so much, even seemingly personal choices. Buying a reliable car isn't just about transport. It signals you're dependable, maybe a good provider. Donating to that highly visible charity signals your generosity, your status as a caring person.
So for you listening right now, maybe you're thinking, okay, I see this, but I genuinely want to be better. I want my actions to align with my values, not just look like they do. How do you escape this trap? How do you get your elephant walking in the direction you actually want to go?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? And the insight here is that you have to consciously change the game you're playing, or maybe change the audience you're performing for. The problem is that our default social environment often rewards the appearance of virtue, the visible caring, the loud pronouncements.
So how do you change them?
One powerful way is to join groups or movements where the rules are different, where the status signals are tied to something more objective, like consider the effective altruism movement.
Okay, effective altruism. How does that work as an antidote?
Because within that community, the thing that gets you status, the signal that's most valued, isn't just saying you care or making a big visible donation to a familiar cause. It's demonstrating with evidence and data that you're maximizing the actual good done per dollar or hour spent. It's about proven utility, measurable impact.
Ah, so the group rewards genuine effectiveness, not just showy compassion.
Exactly. So by joining that kind of community, you harness your natural desire for status and belonging, but you channel it towards actual effectiveness. Your inner elephant gets rewarded for doing provable good, not just looking good.
That's clever. You're basically using the elephant's own motivation-seeking status, but changing the rules so status comes from doing good effectively.
You got it. Or another strategy mentioned is betting on your beliefs. If you have to put money down on whether your political prediction is right or whether your preferred policy will actually work, that suddenly incentivizes genuine accuracy and sincerity. It makes cheap talk and posturing expensive.
Right, makes sense.
But maybe the most provocative thought to leave you with is this kind of paradoxical silver lining. Yes, we're driven by these often selfish, competitive, signaling motives. The elephant is real. But look around. Humans cooperate on incredible scales. We generally get along surprisingly well despite it all. Why? Because our genes ultimately built these ethical brains, these signaling systems. Because in the long run, the best way to win the social game is often through genuine cooperation and service. Society evolves mechanisms to punish cheaters and reward those with good reputations. Being seen as fair, reliable, and helpful is incredibly valuable social currency.
So appearing good is valuable because being good actually tends to pay off.
Over the long haul, yes. Rampant, overt ruthlessness gets you ostracized. Genuine service, contribution, trustworthiness that builds the alliances and reputation you need to thrive. So in a way, our selfish genes built brains designed for ethical signaling precisely because genuine ethical behavior, or at least skillfully performing it, turned out to be a winning strategy in our complex social world. It's why we value friendship, reputation, and fairness so deeply.